Hello class, in this video I'm going to go over all the notes and dimensions and things of that nature, which we can see here. I'll actually go over dimensions more in depth in floor plan and a couple assignments from now, but we'll just do some quick ones here. I do want to point out this, even though this is text, this is actually a leader, which includes the whole arrow and everything. So I'll show you how to use the leader command, and we'll just use some simple text for the slopes of the roofs over here. So I'm going to draw this over to the side and we'll get going drawing. There's a few things I'm going to do before I start drawing. The first is to change my layer. I'm going to do dimensions first, so I'm going to go to annotate dimensions, switch it to there, and then I'm going to go to the annotate tab up here to change my ribbon to see all my text and everything here, and dimension section starts right over here. And while we have this big dimension button, I find for architecture oftentimes going to this linear one, because we make linear things, is easier to start with. So I'm going to hit this linear button and I'm going to click on this bottom. It doesn't really matter, it's really just click click click, and it's mainly automated. It doesn't matter which side you start at. I'm going to click on the bottom first and then up to, I might have to zoom in just to this point right here. It's going to be the top side. Of course, it's automatically drawing that way, but if I pull far enough to the left, it will switch over. And once you can see, I'm just moving my mouse to move this line. And when I find it in about the right spot, I just click and I can set it. And we can see the number comes in automatically set up correctly. And that's how simple it is. There are other things you do need to know about dimensions. Again, I will go over a lot of them when we get to the floor plan. These are so simple, I'll just sort of continue and do the same thing. Again, I can go in the opposite direction. So another dimension we need for here is from that point to this point, and just pull out here, and we can see it also works in that direction. And I want another dimension from here to here. In this case, I want to get them aligned, so I'm going to make sure I snap to this line to make sure these two dimensions are aligned. And in this case, the spacing is so small that it automatically pulls it to the outside like that. That's perfectly fine. That's how you would show this. Also note, in case you didn't know, there should be a gap between your elements and the dimension line, so that's also correct. So this is looking pretty good, and all the size is going to be correct as long as you have 3/16 of an inch equals a foot. If you haven't done that, make sure to do that. I should have did this before I did any of these notes, although we're using the same file that we've already done this in, so it should be okay. It's just sort of a double check. The last thing, there's a couple dimensions that are over on this side, and so I'm going to start a dimension and go from the underside of the roof to the top of the porch and pull that out as 8/6, and then the overhang of the roof as well. Start my dimension, click click, and pull down, and there we go. I've got all the dimensions for this guy done, looking pretty nicely. The next thing I'll do is those leader notes. Again, I showed that at the beginning of this video, but it's the arrow and the text, and again, that's all going to be done in one AutoCAD command, and it's called the multi-leader. So if I were to start here, I'm going to click multi-leader, and you click on where the arrowhead is first. So I'd click, if I'm going to do the standing seam metal roof note, I'd click here sort of on the edge of the roof, and we can see as I move my mouse, it does the angled, and you want the first part to be angled, so it'll draw that first angled line just by placing the mouse. The second part I want to be straight across, so I want to make sure you have some sort of way of getting it here. I've got the green line across to show me it's going straight across, and I'll click and I'll draw that segment of line, and then I start typing my text. Make sure your caps lock is on, because we always do things capitalized, and I will do standing seam metal roof. And if I want it to return like it returns in the drawing, I'll just click this arrow and pull over to make this about that wide, and hit enter, or it's actually click outside. We can see it automatically makes the notes. And you're going to do that for all the leaders. It's not so bad. So I'm going to go here and start leader line again. I'm going to do the fascia here, so I'm going to click inside. Now the thing when you're doing dimensions is you do want to make sure that these points are aligned. So I'm just going to hover over that point there to activate a guideline. We can see when I pull down, it's going to, if I keep my mouse careful, it's going to make sure it's in vertical alignment and approximately the same angle. So I'm going to click there, and then the same thing as the end of this line also wants to be aligned. So I'm going to hover up over there and pull down to draw an alignment before I type in fascia. And then the note says parentheses TYP period, parentheses TYP of course means typical, which means that's going to be, we only have to put the note up there once for all the fascia. We know it's going to be the same size. So that's the notes. I don't think you need to watch me doing all the notes, so I'm going to pause the video and come back when those are done, and I'll pick it up when to do the slopes of the roof. Like magic, I've added the rest of the notes. Actually, there's one thing I want to do because I didn't change my layer. I'm still on a dimension. So actually select all your leaders, and you just can select any part and the whole thing selects, and make sure you switch them to A annotate text because that's what they should be on. And I'm going to change my whole layer to A annotate text to do the next piece of the slope. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and draw the slope line. And you have to draw this. There's no shortcut command for this. It literally is drawing lines and adding regular pieces of text. So I'm going to draw that triangle first. So I'm going to just sort of get close to the roof, you know, approximately there, just sort of eyeballing it, and draw straight up. And it's 9/12, so I got to go up 9 and I got to go over 12. And as long as you drew the roof correctly, your spacing is going to be the same. And then I'm going to go to text. I could go to annotate if I wanted to, and go to multi-line text and just draw a little box above it and say 12. So I'm going to do 12, click over here, and move this into place because I can center it a little more. And again, this note doesn't have to be perfect, so just sort of eyeballing it into place like that. And then I can copy this text once I have it in there once. Copy it. Again, base point doesn't really matter, just has to be there. Move it to where it would be. Double click on it to change the note and change this to 9. Oops, and then I can move it because, of course, 12 or 9 is skinnier than 12 because that's 1 digit or 2 digits. So I'll just move that over, and there we go. You got that slope. Do the same thing down here. Of course, it's 3/12, so I'm going to come in here and just sort of start here. I don't want to hit the side of the roof. We'll see if this works. I'll go up 3 and over 12. And that'll work. In fact, I could even move this closer. So why don't I just hit my move command, select these two lines, and just slide them over to somewhere about there. That feels comfortable for me. And I'm just going to copy this text. So the 12 is the same. So I'm going to start by the 12, copying the 12, hit enter. In fact, if I want in the same spot, I'll just go from the midpoint snap of that line to the midpoint snap of this line to get that there. And then I'll slide it over here. Hit enter to end the copy, and double click, select it all, type in 3, click outside, and then move this into place. It's a little far away. So hit move, select it, hit enter, and just move it across. And there we go. We've got all the notes for this particular elevation on this drawing. So in the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the second elevation that's due as a part of this assignment, and then we'll finish up.